So now we're recording, so no more life spoilers.
No more life spoilers.
And we are now online.
Wait, so no life spoilers. Should I not talk about the cat?
The cat is not a life spoiler.
Oh, the cat.
Those are okay.
The cat is not a life spoiler. She's adjusting.
Good.
We tried to spend some time on the bed with her. She's claimed my old seminary bed as her bed. That is her spot. And we tried to spend some time with her because like we're thinking that she doesn't understand the concept of her being allowed to leave one spot, like one space.
Because she was in the shelter for 2 years.
She was in the, yeah.
Yeah.
And they had her in kind of like a room that had a cat door that led to the outside. You know, they had the crates for individual little kitty crates. And then they had like larger rooms where the cats could live together, all within the cat room. And so we think that like she just hasn't quite grasped the concept that when we leave her room, she can come with us. So
that's really sad.
it is. It is. And she loves head scratches. Like she loves head scratches. She loves attention. But it's like,
I'm not sure if that's actually true about her not believing she can leave the space though, because she came downstairs today.
that's true. She did come downstairs today. So she's getting there.
And she saw us and she kind of retreated back upstairs and didn't want us to give her company at that point. I followed her and she like was making sure I was not in the same room with her.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she was okay until the AC unit started up.
anyway.
The AC unit started up and she's like, I was like, you're fine. Nope, going back upstairs.
All right. Well, some housekeeping.
Okay.
So we were wrapping up. You all were visiting B at Midsum Pawn and Fine Goods, which turned out to be a much stranger place than you had experienced thus far.
Are we sure? Because we've had a T-Rex.
B and Midsum is just as weird in different ways. You've only started to scratch the surface of what all is here.
Okay.
So he showed you a selection of illusory concealed magical items, and you all were doing some shopping after some interlude time in which Auric went on a date, Cyrus had dinner with his family, and Lexi scared a lawyer.
Normal. Just another Thursday evening.
All right. So what were your final shopping selections?
I'm getting that ring of obscuring.
All right.
Oh, did we ever do any of the math?
I know that we had talked about splitting the bag of holding, which would be 150 each.
Yeah, it was a flat 150 each for the bag.
Yeah.
I'll hold on to the back.
And I forgot to say, but I'd recommend we pick up some of those healing potions too.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So I'll get the bag and the rope.
Okay.
More rope. And I don't remember how much the rope cost. Does anybody know?
Him?
How much did the rope cost?
We're
looking it up right now.
Ah, cool.
Rope was rope of climbing, 250.
Okay.
400.
How
And then
much-
throw in another 50 for the for a healing potion.
Sure. Wait, hold on. Okay.
How many did I have?
So then that'd be my bill was 50. There. What's the rope called?
Rope of climbing.
And Rachel was getting the gloves of missile snaring.
What kind of healing potion is it?
They're just standard.
Okay.
We'll slap a little narration on all of it when we're done. So what was Lexi getting?
Lexi's getting the gloves of missile snaring.
All right. I have dropped that into your inventory.
Okay.
Cyrus, you were getting the glass cutter.
Yes.
Okay, that one will take me just a second because it is a custom item.
Oh, and I did have one additional question with that, because it says magical dagger. Is it also a weapon, or is it just?
Yes.
For...
It is also a weapon. It doesn't have a plus anything on it.
Yeah.
But it is considered a magical weapon.
Cool.
That was the language he was looking for.
I will just drop all this text on there. And does not require attunement.
Yeah, I've already maxed out my attuning.
It goes real quick.
I need more gear.
None of my stuff is attunement.
Although functionally, I probably need to tweak those. Technically, Auric, your thing probably shouldn't be attunement.
Okay, yeah.
And the Corvid mantle is probably supposed to be attunement.
Yeah. I was surprised I had none.
I probably put those in backwards.
Wait, hold on. So right now, Oryx's Ring of Seeming is attuned?
No. They're starting items.
His starting thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
His mysterious starting thing. Yeah, they're all supposed to be attunement, but his is a little odd.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'll play with those.
Okay.
Okay, I have a glass cutter dagger created, so it should show up in a few minutes. Who else do I need to drop items on?
I did
Well, I
mine.
found it on the app, so I've got mine.
Awesome.
Rachel's got hers.
Put them on.
And how many potions of healing are you getting?
I bought one.
So
Not that long.
So missile snaring to Lexi. Got that. It's hard to tell if my computer's being slow or if D&D Beyond is being slow. Rope of climbing went to Zyra.
Is that your cat?
No,
Yep.
No, it's
that's not us.
Okay.
Oh, that's dishes in the background.
Oh.
No worries. Okay, so did someone get the Ring of Obscuring?
Yes.
Was that Auric?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Yep, there it goes. This will help me keep track of what's there in the future. Nobody wanted the Hushed Ring or the Obsidian Raven?
Well-
What's moving, y'all?
Here's the thing, like, as far as in character goes, Oric is obsessed with that kitsch, but
Lexi's only got so much cash to burn here.
and how much did that Raven go for again? Like 300, 400?
300.
300. I would have to
I was torn between like going for the Raven, or I still really want the Finder's Keeper, and so I kind of want to save my money and come back and get that as soon as possible.
How much was the Finder's Keeper?
300.
Which of those do you want more?
Finder's Keeper was 250.
Oh, okay.
Because I've got 160.
Oh, okay.
So Oh, we have to buy food.
It's funny. I sort of priced these based on how much they break the game. I did figure that probably the hushed ring was the thing most likely to cause absurd shenanigans. So I priced it accordingly.
Fair.
I don't know how to use it.
Well, I tried to go with things that would be interesting things to use, and we'll add more of what they in Pathfinder called the Christmas tree items later, like the the +1 armor, the +1 weapon, the they're interesting, but all they're really doing is like moving numbers around. Although I guess that's all that we're doing.
Do you want to split the Finders Keeper?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. So it'll be another 125 each. Because it was 250.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
All right.
It's essentially a group person you are.
Yeah.
That's like mostly how I'm treating it. Minus, I think I have the most money, so.
All right. So B is sort of following you around while you all are looking at these various items. You notice he's simultaneously got sort of a weird combination of like anxious watching and just sort of like slovenly slob going on. So like he's kind of like watching you all closely, but also occasionally like just reaches down and fully like lifts up his shirt and scratches his stomach a little bit.
Right.
And you catch a glimpse that this sort of gray hair on his arms, it's super thick, just seems to, it's not like fur. Not like he's not like a anthropomorphic donkey fully. He was just a very hairy fellow before any other factors.
All right.
So it's a fun vibe. So is there anything else that you all think you're gonna need?
So we're gonna get the Finder's Keeper too.
Ah, excellent. He reaches up and grabs it, pulls it open. He's like, oh, I forgot about these. Flips to the back, pulls out like 3 pages of some kind of children's collectible card game cards. He's like, all right, not included.
Hey now.
He's just like stuffing these things into like plastic grocery bags, and you can see they still have like the logo of the brand on it. He was too cheap to purchase his own bags for the store. So how many healing potions was that total?
I bought one.
So 3 total?
3 total.
All right. He reaches under the counter
dangerously
and comes up with it looks like what you would recognize as like a Sam's Club pallet. And it's little like they're called, have you seen what are they called? Huggables? Something like that. They're like squeeze juice containers.
The ones with the really big lids.
Hugs. Chelsea just yelled that they're hugs.
Yeah. They were like
sets,
shorter ones. They're barrel shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sets it up there, and there's a moment of anticipation, like, ooh, what's it actually going to look like? And then he just hands it to you, and it doesn't change. He seems to have put the actual healing potions in like plastic squeezable bottles.
Talent.
That's great.
Yeah. So you all complete your purchases.
Yeah, briefcase.
You exchange some currency, and B waves you all out. And that brings us to Zyra's downtime.
Woo.
The last one to go. You were interested in catching up with your family, right?
Yeah.
So I have woven some things together behind the scenes that hopefully meshes with what you were thinking for them. So kind of where I was at. So you have a sister who is fully human, correct? That is Inna.
Yes.
So the way that I took all of this is that your parents are no longer together. That your father remarried. Actually, a really nice woman who's been very kind to you. You were always aware that there was a tension that sort of grew as you got older. Your mom was like a tempest. She was like a force of nature. Just huge personality, effortless talent, and just sort of blew about from place to place. And you could kind of see it happening during your childhood. Like looking back, you realize, like, you know, your dad was probably more like that when you were born. There's pictures of your dad with, like, you know, the long hair at concerts, and generally being a much sort of wilder personality. But once you were born, he kind of started to get a little more serious. You see the hair gets cut. You know that he started a different line of work. But your mom didn't really change. She sort of remained this flitting about. And you actually remember she would reinvent herself every so many years. She was a performer like you, but it was like she couldn't just be one thing. Like, you remember when you were born, she was still very much in a storytelling, sort of folk music kind of vibe, historical songs. And she would keep that same sensibility. And there was a weirdness to the music that you never quite heard anywhere else. And she'd keep those core themes and some of that core musical structure, and she'd just fly off into a new genre. You remember a memorable glam rock phase where your mother did fairly well. Somehow it worked. And she would just sort of flit about. And over time, you saw less and less of her. The tours would run longer. She'd be a little bit harder to get a hold of. We're going to call this a retroactive insight check.
Okay. Oh, it's terrible. It's 9.
All right. So your strongest memories of your mother, your most concerted memories, are early. At a very young age, she was looping you into these traditions and this music and this seemingly infinite well of storytelling that she had. And sometimes it was hard because it didn't seem like she had to practice. It didn't seem like she had to work. Like, she just radiated grace and lyricism and musicality, like it was just utterly natural to her. And you all had some tense moments. There was definitely some expectations that were butting against each other. You picked it up amazingly fast, but you still had to work at it. And you still, when you write, you have to write and revise and think and practice and rehearse. Whatever that weirdness was that let your mother do that never clicked exactly the same with you. And finally, she just sort of faded out. You assume she's out there somewhere. You don't know what her current persona is, what new medium and genre she has flung herself into. But you do know that, there it is. You do know that Lander and his new wife, not new anymore, are
Current.
living happily in a, it's sort of the suburban edge of, my own fictional geography wrong. It's sort of the suburban edge of Vert, almost out to like the edge of the city, where there's sort of some sprawl out beyond the walls. And they seem to be living a happy semi-suburban life. You hear from them sometimes. Your sister finished nursing school, which was a very practical, solid choice, sort of fitting of her life choices. How do you want to get a hold of them? And who do you want to get a hold of first?
I'm gonna send I a little while ago I set up me and Anna send each other gratefuls. And so like we might not talk at all for months, except for these like 3 slice of life notations of what we're grateful for. And so I still have a text thread with her, but which it's okay to like do other stuff in it, but so I like send it like a, hey, I'm actually in town. Are y'all around? Can I come for
Go ahead.
Can I come for dinner?
So it's not very long at all before you get a text back. And it's quick. You feel some excitement. The message comes back. That's great! Exclamation point. Would love to see you. It's been a while. I'll talk to
Don, Mom.
I know I was trying to line up the pronunciation in my head. Da. We'll call Da and arrange details ASAP. And so shortly thereafter, you have, just for parallel sake, we'll say it's also a Sunday evening dinner.
Why not?
I like to imagine you all sort of mentally fortifying yourselves before these different family gatherings and dates and different things happening. So we have Lander and Inna.
Did I name? I don't know if I named Anna's mom.
No, that's what I was. Do you want to throw one out?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. All right. Stephanie Brightwood. Add her to your character notes. I just added that in green and I don't know why. Okay, that was weird. Let's just erase that. All right, Stephanie Brightwood. So they've got this nice little suburban slice of life. Honestly, in a city as old as Queensboro, this is by far one of the newer little sections of town. There were structures here that over time had kind of faded out and eventually the neighborhood was sort of restructured and extended out beyond the wall in places. It's very, not quite picket fences, but green yards and I don't know. There's a powerful sense of just normalcy that radiates off of this neighborhood. How does that make Zyra feel?
It's fine, right? But see, the thing is, it's not that Zyra is uncomfortable with how it feels. It's how it feels that she doesn't fit in. So she would notice more people looking at her. There's a few eyes. There you can definitely see curtains fluttering. And also there's public transit to it, which is definitely what Zyra would have taken, but it's a bit of a walk too. But it's a bit of a walk where there are sidewalks, but no one walks. So, like, and also no one walks wearing whatever Zyra's wearing. So she doesn't. I mean, it's fine. Sure, it's fine, but it's not really actually fine.
A little voice in the back of your head says, you know, when my parents were younger, this is the kind of neighborhood that would have probably called the authorities on them if they were walking through.
It's definitely a neighborhood watch kind of neighborhood.
Yeah. And actually make a perception check.
Oh dear. 19.
That feeling of being looked at like intensifies really suddenly. And you actually see she's sort of adorable, but there's a little old lady. There's like a smaller house right next door, and sort of walking up through the yard with a cat on a leash is a woman probably in her, it's kind of indeterminate 70s, 80s, like, but she seems spry enough. She seems to be bringing her cat out. And of course, there's a moment of concern like, oh, wait, all right, is this already happening? But actually, she's smiling like hugely. And she says, oh, you must be Lander's daughter, the writer, singer, professor, right?
That is me. Can you remind me who you are? Do I know you?
Just call me Grammy. Your dad comes over and mows my lawn sometimes, and he always talks about how proud he is of his daughters, the nurse and the writer.
That sounds like that.
She's happy to see you. There is still some like, what is she wearing? But it's not the dominant tone. 1 second, that is the oven going off.
That's exciting.
Okay. We need an ad copy.
Yeah.
Tonight's episode brought to you by
Wooden goblets.
Wooden goblets. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Holy shit.
I don't know how to add.
We are live.
We're live. Joe has pulled up on Zillow the
My parents' old house in Tucson.
the post flip.
Post.
I'm like,
It's-
holy crap.
Like the entire north side of the house is now open concept.
Yeah. Like my brain is having trouble with this because
Yeah.
and it's a 5-bedroom now.
Oh, that means they made the room smaller. Yeah. So I got Zoom
Yeah.
backgrounds, but I don't know how to add my Zoom backgrounds. But this is a book that I think I'll enjoy. It's by Rose Evelyn.
I like it.
It's a comic book.
Ooh.
Yeah, it looks cool.
So
Different comics.
nice.
Anyway, sorry. Yes. So
So Grammy hears something going off behind her and says, "Oh, that's the oven," and she runs off. And in her momentary panic, she drops the cat, and the cat like waits a second and kind of.
I'm a cat person. I have a hand down.
It's looking at you. It sniffs for a second. Make a perception check.
I don't remember what the number is. 13.
The cat flickers for a second, and then it smiles,
Cheshire.
and then there's another flicker, and it's like,
Oh.
yeah, and then it just goes back to the house.
Okay.
You hear Grammy yell, "Fancy!" and like clink a food bowl, and it just
Trots off.
So you see, of course, there are 3 cars in the driveway. Because of course, Lander and Anna and Stephanie all have their own vehicles. Anna's car is a little newer. It's something a little more sporty and compact, but not like sports car. Stephanie has it's one of those SUVs that's really a minivan. Like, it's not going to haul anything. It's a minivan with pretensions. And your dad still seems to be driving some dependable old car from like 20 years ago. He's very meticulous about oil changes and tire rotations, and it still seems to be running fine.
Exactly why. Exactly why it's still running fine.
All right. Are you gonna knock, ring the doorbell, just walk in?
Just walk in. Hello?
You hear people bustling about, and you see your sister's head sort of pop around the hallway. And what would your sister? What would she call Zyra?
Just Zyra.
All right.
Right? No. Maybe Ra.
She lets out. I'm not even going to try and do her voice, but in my mind, Inna was definitely in a sorority. Not like one of the like super preppy sororities, but like you can still hear it a little bit sometimes.
She's a woo girl like me.
But there's just a little bit of the excited sorority girl squeal. And she yells, "Oh, Ra!" and runs out and gives you a big hug. You see your dad's head pop around the corner. Stephanie kind of awkwardly waves from the back. You can already smell it smells like simple home cooking. Very much, I hate to use the word in this context, but like the word that comes to mind is basic. you're not catching like a lot of, you know, exotic spices or unusual ingredients. I say this as I have, like, you know, plain chicken thighs and Italian dressing cooking in the oven, so I speak with authority on basic.
Yeah, no, it could be a salad and potatoes and some lemon chicken, maybe. It's lemon chicken.
Mm-hmm.
It's special because it's lemon chicken.
And it was gotten off of a website that had a 15-page story about a trip to Tuscany that changed someone's life.
Right.
And then the lemon chicken.
As all good blogs, food blogs do.
Of course. So you all, you know, kind of exchange pleasant chit chat. Stephanie asks some, you know, some polite questions about how your book's going and how you're liking lecturing at the school, doing your, you know, your guest lecturer thing. You gather that there's at least, they're at least vaguely keeping up with what's going on. So how do you bring up what you want to talk about?
Mm. Mm. Um. So, when I came inside, I took my coat off,
Say it again.
and when I came inside, I took my coat off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go get it. We've moved on to drinks and dessert.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go get my coat, and I'm holding it, and I'm holding one of the sleeves. And I say, Dad, can you tell me any more about this and this pattern? And I hold up my arm and I say, because I got this. I don't know if you remember when I got this, but it changed, and now it. I don't. It changed on its own. Um, and I don't know if that had anything to do with Mom or not. Would you? Can you? My memories of Mom are vague and, well, they're brightly colored, but it's more like a kaleidoscope than a clear image.
As early as politely possible, Stephanie excuses herself to go wash up, to sort of opt out of the talking about her husband's ex-wife conversation. Your dad is sort of hesitant and awkward. Inna is sort of filling some of the silence. Like, she's immediately sort of like way too much in your space, sort of like poking at it and looking at it and being like, wait, it did what? That doesn't. She's poking at it. Was there any redness? Was there any, like, you know, it's just asking, you know, did it require additional treatment after that, or did it immediately heal? And
No, yeah, that's the thing. This happened after it healed. I didn't expect to see it change. It was a couple years. And then I had a dream, and in my dream it changed. And when I woke up, the tattoo matched the one in my dream.
Lander looks very uncomfortable. You see him sort of lining up his words carefully. I'm not sure that I ever knew your mother as well as I thought I did. She was someone who was wonderful, someone amazing to be around, but still hard to know. She could say 1,000 words and tell you everything in the world, and at the end you'd realize you hadn't learned anything about her. And that was her style. Through all the reinventions, I felt like she told me a lot about literally everything but her. He pulls up his phone and you see him scrolling way back. And he pulls it's like a snapshot of an older picture. And he shows it to you, and it's your mother wearing that jacket. Make a perception check.
7, 25.
25. How old is Zyra?
42.
So you notice two things about this picture. Your mother looks exactly how you remember her. Even to like your most recent memory of her, she still looks just like this. And this picture was taken like 46 years ago, 47 years ago. And she looks exactly the same. I don't mean well preserved. I don't mean you have a fine eye for detail. You can spot, tiny marks on a manuscript. You can catch almost imperceptible expressions on a crowd. And you can see that there is not a line or wrinkle or anything different between this picture and the last time you remember seeing her. And your dad relates some of the story as you've heard it, that your mother was a performer, was a storyteller, and her style then was much closer to what you do now when he first met her. And she wore the jacket and she performed, and she would just entrance the crowd. And it was something that folks just hadn't heard before. And it was something that afterwards they couldn't quite explain how it was different from what they'd heard before, but they knew that it was. And he kind of like coughs and looks a little uncomfortable and says, he was very different then. It's been a long time. And he relates a bit of his youth of, and essentially being a Queensboro hippie. Like, obviously the history is a little different, but that was his adolescence, was the equivalent of, tie-dye and drugs and peace and music and art. And everyone loved the music, but he and your mother connected in a powerful way as people, more so than just everyone loved the art, but there was something that they were both drawn to each other. But she would never talk about where she was before. She would never talk about, she'd start to talk about an old friend or a family member, or, she'd get caught up and start saying, so-and-so taught me this song. and then she'd catch herself before she said anything. And for a long time, he just let himself be okay with that. And then she became stranger after, not just after you were born, but when you started to be about 5 or 6 and you really started to learn the music and the stories, and you started to share that fascination, sort of simultaneously, that's when she began those sort of crazy reinventions of herself. That was sort of the same period. And it was also when she started to pull back a little bit. And he saw her less and less, and she was more and more different every time. But your dog is going to make a perception check historically. Well, an insight check. He felt like she started to be nervous about something, but she wouldn't tell him what it was. And he thinks maybe whatever she was nervous about was related to why she seemed to get further and further away from you all. Almost like she was he chooses his words very carefully. Not that she was running away from you all, but almost like she was trying to draw attention away from you all and be somewhere else, to shine a light in a different place than where you were.
Just ever since the whatever we've been calling the gate,
Mm-hmm.
ever since the opening, even my stories have changed. No, the stories are the same. The effects have changed, and I've noticed that feeling that I used to always get when Mom told a story. It looks like that's what's happening to the people who are listening. I can think I can make things glow around me. It's a bit odd. So, but yeah. And so I didn't know if Mom was part of that.
He seems a little surprised, but not too surprised, like less surprised than you expected. I never repeated those stories because honestly, there were a lot of drugs back then. And it was hard to say, well, that answers some questions that I maybe have had. I think I have. Are you hoping to find her, to find more about her?
Maybe. It's more, I want to know more about what's going on with me, and if following that trail leads me to her, then I'll follow it. But I'm not going to set a path towards her. she'll let herself be found if she wants to be.
The only thing I can think to give you to help is this is just one of, we used to take a lot of pictures. We would take them, and fans would take them, and friends would take them, and I don't know, one of those weird Saturday morning projects you get into, I digitized them all a couple years ago. I can send you what I've got. Some of them have dates and places and names on them. You might find something that'll help you figure out where she's gone, or find some hints about what's happening with you.
Sure. Yeah. You can data drop them to my school account. I can give you that information.
I will have Inna explain to me what that means.
Good old dad.
There's a lot of dad energy in the NPCs. We're heavy on the dad energy. Is there anything else you want to ask him or Inna or Stephanie, I guess?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Yeah, it was lovely.
So a wonderful dinner is had. Not maybe as awkward as you might have feared. Stephanie seemed to be very tactful and careful. I think there was some reassurance. I think maybe in the back of Zyra's head, she'll remember that what Grammy said, especially, that even if you all aren't keeping up all the time, your dad's still bragging about you to his friends, to his neighbors.
Excuse me.
All right. Does anyone have any remaining interlude activities they want to do?
Open mic night at Lou's.
You would. Like, you would.
All right. So you all sort of go about your own separate things. Dates are had, dinners are had, shopping is done. The chaos at the Kent building has mostly been resolved. It's obviously still a strong topic of gossip among the students and the professors, let's be honest. You and Archie have been doing a pretty good job keeping mum about the whole thing. He is pleading amnesia for any of the relevant details.
He was a T-Rex while it happened, so.
Yeah. None of the other polymorphed individuals seem to remember much, except for some lingering physical oddities from the demand that opened across Archie's office. Some bookshelves that didn't quite get back together correctly, and some weird, like, warped spaces in the carpet and the ceiling tiles. Other than that, though, it seems to have come back together fairly well. Anything else advancing? Cyrus, you hear back from you get a rat from Gimbal. Think I might have a line on the kid. I'll let you know. Jace is still sending you the very frustrated, I know he's here, I just can't find him. Auric, you get another voicemail. Friend. My goodness. My actual like campaign notes of like the stuff you all have actually done, not like the world stuff, just what you've actually done is 25 pages now.
Oh my gosh.
Well then.
You get another call from Nala Caroline. And it's very similar to the previous message. There's sort of a plaintive quality to it of Mr. Darlanton. This is Nala Caroline calling again. I don't want to be a bother, but I'm really worried about my daughter, and if you're available, I'd love to be able to hear back from you.
I should probably call her back.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. So Lexi, the stuff from Lieutenant Davis was brought to you.
Yes.
How do you want to disseminate that to the group?
Let's see here. Looking at my notes. Okay. So the situation that we have is that there have been fires on the houses of worship. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's happening. Houses of worship of pathers and spiritualists. And they're set and done in such a way that it is making Solonists look like the culprits. However, Lieutenant Davis knows everybody in the organization here, in the Solonist, who has the ability to cause magical fire. And he knows that none of them would be able to do this. Like, what's happening is not, it doesn't mesh with who these folks are and their abilities. So that's kind of the gist of it. And so he would like us to do some digging to find out who's actually behind it and what do they have against the Solonists, because clearly there's some setup going here. That's kind of the gist of it. Did I forget anything?
No, sounds good. And just for context, how about everyone make a religion check?
$11.
That's a nat 20. Hold on.
All right.
With the
6.
where's religion in the alphabet? That's 23.
Again, I feel like this sort of tracks. Auric, these are specifically human religions that did not, as far as you know, exist prior to the Sundering. I don't know why would Cyrus not be up to date on this?
He doesn't.
He doesn't care. I don't know. He just never practiced.
Yeah.
And Lexi knows a little bit more because you have some background with the Solonists, so you would be a little bit more up to date. And of course, Zyra just hears everything. You just absorb cultural information. So essentially, there are three major human religions, really in general, but specifically in Queensboro. And the three that are practiced are Solonism, which worships a being of light and has a lot of emphasis on justice, on holiness. It's highly evangelistic. There's a lot of language of like sharing this light, showing people the light. You also know that they have had some conflict. There's been a bit of a split. The Solonists have been not monolithic, but like fairly centrally organized for a long time. And there are now splinter fragments of the church, and they're specifically splitting over what to do with the Fae. The Fae are this weird like what if aliens showed up theological issue. And it has sort of split the moderate central institution, and especially the sort of more conservative, almost like militant, essentially. And so those two groups have sort of split.
Y'all want to read this book I'm reading. You want to read the book I'm reading so bad.
That's the one you showed us earlier, right?
Nope.
Nope.
It's a book. It's a book that's gonna win the Hugo.
Okay.
Spiritualism is sort of a pan-entheistic religion, sort of the divine in nature, but not like it's not like a god of nature. It's like literally the real world equivalent would be like Shintoism or animism, something in that neck of the woods. They actually, Lander might have been a spiritualist or spiritualist adjacent back in the day. That's kind of that vibe. Pathers are more, you might call them exuberant polytheists. To them there's a deity in everything, from the great to the small. And so they usually have very like active, colorful, almost chaotic worship spaces with lots of small altars and icons and representations, and the worship is very varied. There's some central deities, but for the most part it's like small gods, gods of families and neighborhoods and streets, and very small scale, but lots of them. Slightly smaller, but still impactful. There's a sect called the Tamarins, who have been around for a very long time, that seem to worship an entirely different deity that might date back to pre-sundering. But they're a very sort of small, close-knit community. And then recently, there's been a revival of a lot of ancient religions that are just collectively calling themselves the ancients. And that's sort of the religious landscape in town. So excuse the lore dump, but we'll pretend that was just Zyra, like
Informing everyone.
Yeah.
Bringing Auric up to date, because Cyrus should know better, but Auric has a lot to learn.
There are Fae and there are stronger Fae. That is religion.
Try to get Auric caught up on his 21st century knowledge or whatever.
That is how Fae religion works. All right, so there's been 2 or 3 attacks up to this point. They've been targeting smaller spiritualist and pather shrines, worship spaces, all within the Queensboro area. You did see a common thread of seemingly inexplicable fire. And as far as Davis knew when you talked to him, for the most part, no one else was starting to put this together yet, but he could see where it was pointing. So where do y'all want to start?
I think I should really probably call this one back. Y'all can get discussing without me.
Terrible person.
Scatterbrained.
Yeah. I mean, my gut instinct is to like go to where the fires have been. given that fire magic is involved, I wonder if well, Arik's a little busy right now, but maybe he'd call his girlfriend for us, and she might be able to give us some insight to things that we don't know. Just in general, you know, how it works and stuff like that. I mean, Lexi's thinking from a pretty what is magic and how does it, you know, how do magnets work kind of like Lexi spent her entire life just accepting things. So
And
she
I
How
doesn't
do
know.
magnets work?
I can always go detect magic in case there's any lingering. If there's any lingering anything.
Yeah.
Somebody was using the runes or something. So yeah, I pick the closest one. Go take a look.
Sounds good. I'll pull Pokey around. Take a
Yeah,
ride.
Pokey ride.
Pokey ride.
All right. So while you all are starting to get arrangements in order, Oric dials Miss Caroline back. It rings a couple of times. Hello?
Hello, Miss Caroline. This is Oric Darlanton. Sorry I missed you.
Oh, that's okay. You can find people, right?
Sometimes.
My daughter, missing isn't the right word.
Okay.
I haven't seen her in, it's been a few weeks now, but it's been the police said that there's nothing they can do about it. She's been involved with this group, and she started pulling away from us more and more. She moved out. She quit answering my messages. Apparently the police talked to her and said that she was fine, and they said there was nothing they could do about it, but I have a bad feeling about this.
Okay. Bad feeling isn't a lot to work with. Can you describe the feeling more?
Are you a religious man, Mr. Darlanton?
In a certain sense of the word?
It's less of a feeling and more of, I sound crazy, but I guess things are crazy. Vision is too strong of a word.
A premonition, maybe?
Something in that family of things.
Okay.
The people she's around are not good for her. And I don't know how else to. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
I've definitely experienced stranger.
She's been meeting with a group called, oh, these names. They're Solinus, but they're not the Solinus in the nice temple with all of the glass and the lights. I guess they have some of those things, but they're They call themselves the Radiant Dawn.
Oh, good. Cults.
Radiant Dawn. It sounds like it should be a kind name, but it doesn't sound kind.
Evangelism at its worst. Fundamentalists.
If I'll tell you everything that I can about her and about what's been going on, but do you think you can at least either, if nothing else, prove me wrong?
I would be happy to look into it for you.
And we'll leave over you and her negotiating rates. We'll say that you're very kind and she's very generous, and it's similar to the Pevens arrangement. It's about 300 gold. And she gives you information. Her daughter is Beery Caroline. She is 22 and has it's almost too bright to be blonde. It almost looks like it's maybe not her natural color, but it's like a bright blonde and then sort of streaks silver towards the bottom.
So Radiant Dawn hair.
And you see it's a slightly shorter human female. And you see pictures of, it looks like there's like some graduation pictures, and you do catch a couple of pictures at a place that just sticks out to you. It's a room with, these are older pictures, mostly older pictures. It's a room with this strange silver and gold. You can only catch parts of it, but it almost has like a serpentine motif to it.
I look at the picture of the silver and gold serpent motif, and I just look down at my arm briefly, like.
All right. Do you want to call Vela?
Well, first I will. Hey guys, I think we might have a connection.
Fine.
And then I will relay all the information to the rest of the group about the Radiant Dawn. And potentially bringing in people who were formerly innocent and may be innocent still. And then I will call Vela.
Is attunement. Okay. Excuse me. One thing before your phone call, after your date, you did wake up with a gift on your doorstep.
Okay.
It's not the direction I thought that was going.
Whatever else you woke up to initially, we'll leave to the imagination. But you woke up to a very like nice, polite, again, that like a subtle but very nice box. It's like a polished wood. It looks expensive. There's sort of scroll work on it and things. And inside, there was
what does a magical hickey look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
The
And
burn
how
mark is what
do
he's
I
like.
take down scales?
yes. Oh, so whatever scale color he is, it's like the chromatic opposite of that.
I see.
So we will leave speculation behind, but you do wake up with this very nice box. It's fairly light, and inside there is some kind of object wrapped in like a sheaf of paper, like a scroll. When you open it, the scroll appears to be a scroll for the spell that Vela used. The ignition spell that lit all the candles. And you can see that some pains appear to have been taken to make it more easily explained, a little less technical. So it's not like a magical scroll in that sense. It's just more, with some study, you could probably figure out how to do this, some practice. But inside is a beautiful wand of approximately the same. It's not the exact same wood, but it's of the same caliber of material. And it looks plain when you see it in the box, but once you touch it, you see like scroll work and runes sort of light up down the length of it, and it practically hums. It's almost like a lightsaber vibe, like. And drop the attunement requirement on that. It'll take a second to pop through. So yeah, so you call her up. Have you all been talking since then?
Oh, certainly.
You really think she ain't gonna let you alone?
I was
Whether
gonna say,
I think to or not.
Yeah.
it might determine the temperature of the conversation in many senses of the word. You again, she answers very quickly. By now you've sort of gotten used to like the explosions in the background. That just seems to be her teaching style. A very practical, hands-on sort of instructor. And again, you hear that telltale sound of her, you now know to be her counter spell. You've gotten to see it a couple times. And just sort of casually brushing off the spells being flung at her, and she answers the phone. Yeah, she can come help you take a look at it. I'll assume you arrange a time and location to go to first.
Yes.
All right. So there are 3 locations to check out. There is there's the Vesiny Lake Gathering, which is the spiritualist site. You know that this is just it's actually a really nice lake. Is a strong word. It's a little bit too big to be a pond. It's a little bit too small to be a lake, but they call it the Vesiny Lake anyway. It's sort of fed off of the Vance River. And part of the reason it's so nice is because the spiritualists religiously, literally, take care of the park around it. There's also the Falmouth Mordry Temple of the 100,000 Paths, which is the Pather location that was attacked. What was the third? And the third spot is further up the river at the Vance River Gathering, which is technically in Riverside, but it's the edge of Riverside.
Go look at a pretentious lake.
I vote the lake.
Yes.
Cool beans.
All right. So you head down to Vesiny Lake. I'm assuming that you're probably coming from Lewes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're coming.
It's pretty close, actually. And you all would actually be pretty familiar with it. Oric, you're living fairly close. Luz is pretty close. It really is a really nice park. Like, it's definitely the spot, even for non-religious reasons. Like, if someone in Falmouth is going to go to a park, they're probably going to go to Vesney Lake. It's a little bit more, there's more like natural plant growth than you normally find in a park. It doesn't look as, it looks cultivated but not domesticated, if that makes sense. You see very sort of beautifully arranged and interwoven areas of like natural flora that still seems to be thriving even as winter is still clinging on. And everybody make a perception check.
14.
18.
Nice.
18.
17.
All right. You all spot these fairly well. There are small shrines all over this area. And they're kind of subtle, but they stand out as they're just slightly set apart from the space that they're in, but they sort of reflect the space. So there's like an area of wild grasses where like a small circle of grass has been sort of woven together almost to make a bed. And then it looks like a stone has been rested on this bed of grasses. You see a small like thing of stacked stones by the edge of the lake. By a tree, there's like a little, it looks like someone has maybe carved like a thick branch that had fallen off one of the trees. Someone had carved it into a little plinth marker or something like that. It's over sort of off by the trees, and it looks like it's been marked with something. And so you spot all these small shrines. You also can't help but notice that there is something like almost like a large gazebo. And you all would have seen it before. It's just sort of a nice natural space. It was sort of a stained wood color. And it looks like something has burned about 2/3 of it away.
Too late. They already beat you to it.
It's already been defeated.
It's already burnt.
It sits kind of like up on a little hill overlooking the lake. Not a huge hill, but a little bit of incline. And you can see that about 2/3 of it has just been burned away, and there's blackened patches all along the grass. You do see a handful of folks out there actually working on it. And you all have encountered a few spiritualists at this point. They tend to dress very simply. That's sort of part of there's a very sort of naturalist ethic. And they stand out. It tends to be very like flowing, very flowing, almost robe-like clothing. And you can see several of them going to work rebuilding this gazebo. Ain't a better word than gazebo. Pavilion. We'll go with pavilion. All right. What do y'all want to
do? There's clearly a foreperson, a person in charge, a manager.
It's not immediately obvious, but as you're standing there, you do see there's like 3 or 4 people using tools. And as you kind of look to see who maybe is in charge, you see an older, looks like an older man with graying hair. He actually is dressed like the most plainly of all of them there. It's essentially just like it almost looks like a linen tunic, belted, and then like sort of baggy pants. No shoes at all, not even sandals. In the middle of this work zone. And he's not using tools. Instead, he seems to have like a wheelbarrow of fragments of this gazebo, and he's just systematically like taking one and he puts it up, and then he puts another hand on it, and then when he takes his hands away, it seems to be part of the structure again. What do y'all want to do?
I'm gonna cast Detect Magic and look for any lingering trace, anything around the burned area.
So it's been a little bit. Make an Arcana check to go with this.
17.
All right. So you immediately catch, I mean, very obviously, traces of evocation magic, almost like smoke, sort of rolling off of that area. There's a clear, like, shimmer of transmutation magic every time he attaches another one of these pieces of wood. You can also see there's almost there's a, how to say it, there's almost a an aura coming off of this figure, not just the thing that he's doing with the wood, but there's almost like a web isn't the right word. It's almost like branches. You can almost see like a spectral it's almost like a drooping tree, like a weeping willow or something, that you can't see with your normal vision, but it seems to be sort of radiating off of him and touching the people around him. And as you see this, you actually realize, like, you watch one of the people reach over and he just picks up like 200 pounds of wood, like just up over a shoulder, and just easily carries it over. You see someone else, there's no like tap, tap, tap with nails. It's just, and it goes through like a pneumatic nail gun. There's clearly some kind of spell coming off of him and affecting the people around him. And with that check, you can also see, just as that spell is radiating off of him and onto the people around him, you can see that the energy for that spell is being sort of swept up from this whole park, from the lake, from the plants, from the trees. It's almost like there are roots coming down, invisible roots coming down from his body and pulling not a ton of energy, but just skimming the surface of all of this natural life in this area.
I drew a tree
There we go.
during the lore dump.
You were feeling the tree.
I was feeling the tree.
The evocation magic has been a while. You might be able to glean something more. Your investigator's brain, I mean, obviously this was something large. You've seen, I think, Auric use burning hands before. You saw a fireball at the evocation demonstration. Your gut says something like that. It looked bigger than just like a little firebolt or something.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what we can learn here. Like I don't know how to investigate a arson site. If anyone else has ideas, it's cool. I don't have a clue what we're trying to figure out.
So do we know it's 100% like it was magically started? There's not like physical arson.
So the leap that was made is that the scene has already been went over by CSI, by police, and they didn't find any of the chemicals or accelerants or even fuel sources you would expect. There would be residue if there was, if somebody dumped a bunch of gasoline out here, there'd be something left, but there didn't seem to be. And that was Davis's best guess. If there's no physical, logical reason for a giant fire starting in today's world, maybe magic.
Yeah. Okay. Can we tell like an epicenter or an impact point or?
Everybody make an investigation check, and Auric and Cyrus, you get advantage.
14.
Did you say investigation?
Mm-hmm.
With advantage, I get 14.
Yeah, he had some bad rolls.
22.
That one, a 3.
All right.
Sorry.
Saves the day.
Tree.
I think Zyra might be having one of those moments of like that tension between the poetry and beauty of nature versus like having to walk through a park in the cold and the snow. Like the abstract is really nice. This experience, not maybe so much. You're just thinking like your fingers are getting cold and you can feel your breath and
yeah, I can see that.
So so you all kind of find various things around. So Lexi and Auric, you're sort of looking at these burn patterns. Auric, you've started a good few fires in your life. You are familiar with scorch patterns. It definitely looks magical to you, specifically because you can actually tell the difference where the super intense arcane fire stops, and then there's sort of the residual fires that were caused, but the residual fires they don't burn as hot. So you can actually see like almost a cone of almost completely seared, like there's nothing down to the ground. And then out from that a little ways, you start to see like blackened nubs of grass. And that immediately clicks for you, like, oh yeah, that's a hallmark of magic fire. Cyrus, you've probably actually investigated some arson before. And so you're able to sort of backtrack. You can see by the way some of the fires like layered over each other, some of the patterning and things, and you can trace it back, and there's a strangely circular initial burn. It looks like the first fire started in one spot. And with that excellent roll, you can just barely make out that this circle of fire is probably a 3 or 4 foot radius. And it seems to be the first point of flame. And you have to like get down on hands and knees and really get in there. And you can just barely see where something shielded like 4 weird spots on the ground from the worst of the flame. Like it's still mostly burnt around, but it's noticeable. You catch just a little bit of the grass that is missing all the way around it, sticking up in those spots. And you kind of have to do the magic eye thing. But it sort of resolves, and it seems to you that this is where someone stood and this fire started around them.
Okay.
And as you all are investigating, it's a large park. There's a lot of stuff going on, but you're like not super far from the gazebo, from the pavilion. And finally, as you all are looking, everyone make a perception check.
17.
Hey, 12.
18.
I get perception.
Yeah.
You're the investigator.
I'm down here. I'm like,
Yep.
Cyrus's
Very
eyes
busy.
on the ground.
So who rolled highest?
I had 18.
18. Okay. All of you are looking pretty closely at this. And I think you've probably reconvened around this large circle. And Lexi, you catch almost just like the faintest whisper of movement. Like maybe just, it could just be the wind through some of the grass. And then standing right over your shoulder is a smiling face attached to this very plain linen clothing that says, well, hello. What have you found here?
It's a cat.
I jump and try not to scream.
The man who seemed to be doing the magic earlier, you don't think he teleported, because Cyrus would still have detect magic up, and that would have like flared up. But you definitely catch not so much like a full spell, but almost like he has a special relationship with nature that allows him to tread lightly. I mean, supernaturally lightly. And he is just sort of like up behind you all while you were investigating. Welcome to the park. Is this your first time visiting?
No, I've been here before. It's just been a long time.
Oh, Miss. And he closes his eyes for a second, and you hear like a Miss Farino, Lexi, right?
Yes.
And I won't make you tell the story of the time you came here, but he relates broadly the time that you came here, like just in general, like, oh yes, you came on this day, it was this season, and you particularly liked
The daffodils.
yeah. And then very oddly he says, the daffodils remembered you.
Cool.
So I see you're examining our little spot of misfortune here.
Yeah, so some very interesting patterns in these burns.
Has anyone threatened y'all recently?
Not that I can recall. Most folks find parks fairly inoffensive. We the only times we ever seem to have any trouble is occasionally with developers who want to put up the newest trending apartment complex here, but not even much of that recently.
Just remind them that the land won't let them.
He smiles and nods.
Were there any messages? Anything left? Anyone claim responsibility, or just you showed up one day and there'd been a fire? Were people here when it started?
No, it seemed to have happened, and you see it again, and this time you're watching for it. There's just this momentary. He says, there were no people here. It was 3:31 in the morning. It was overcast. There was a raccoon looking through one of the garbage bins. There were 7 squirrels. No, there was no one here. And then one person walked to here. And then it was like this in the morning.
The park doesn't have a memory between 3:31 and sunrise?
Not in this location.
Does the park frequently have gaps in memory?
The park it would take many hours of meditation and theological pontificating to begin to lay out the mechanics of it, but the park only remembers what the grass and the soil and the air remember.
Okay.
Fire
Obliterated memory.
Fire cuts through. It's not uncommon after a forest fire, or for some folks, there's a memory in such things, in smoke and ash, and they can hear it just as well as I can hear the park. But I'm afraid that's not a gift that any of us possess here.
Okay.
Tell me again what time it is that the memory returns.
The next thing that this spot remembers is a jogger. rounds the corner and sees the smoke and walks across the grass and calls the police. As you all are thinking, everyone make another perception check.
Ooh, 7.
17.
Dirty 20.
What?
I got a dirty 20.
I got a clean 20.
All right.
Nice.
Ulrich, as you all are talking, you're trying to sort of think this through. You're trying to put some investigator brain to it. And you're focusing so hard that, like, for just a second, you lose track of this guy. Like, you were talking to him, you're looking straight at him, and then your brain is just like, I don't see anything there. And he doesn't move. He doesn't seem to do anything. The rest of you are watching a little more closely. It's like he exhales and his presence diminishes and the presence of the park increases, and you all manage to catch it. It's not really an illusion. It just seems to be how he is. When he sort of centers isn't the right word. When he sort of uncenters himself, his presence diminishes, and part of your brain just doesn't perceive a person to be standing there. But y'all are getting pretty good at seeing through unusual magical and optical circumstances.
I think I might be able to come up with more questions for him after I sleep.
I get that.
Well, and that kind of gives you all a structure. So you've got these 3 sites to check out. You also have the Solinus Temple. There's a central sort of, I need to come up with better terms for them. But the Grand Cathedral is sort of the headquarters in town. And you assume some of these splinter Solinist groups have headquarters as well that you could probably go interact with.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that'll help you all focus your questions and figure out things you want to check out. I didn't actually drop Vela into that scene. She would have found the same things, helped you all find the same things. All right.
But with innuendo.
Yes. All right. Then we will reconvene next week to continue to investigate these strange fires.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to kill the recording.